Welcome back. And once more, I get to say welcome back to my good friend and very valued colleague at the Institute for the American Future, the chairman of its board. That would be Rod Martin. Rod is a PayPal Mafia member from days of yore. He's gone on to bigger and better things in private enterprise and investing. He is also a now very, very prodigiously impressively productive contributor to the public policy debate through the Rod Martin Report, which you can find at rodmartin.org. I was just taking aboard his latest video and I said, wait a minute, I got to get that guy on our show. So here we are. We're going to give you a sneak preview of his most recent breaking news item. Rod, welcome back. It's good to have you, sir.
Always good to be here.
As we speak, we are taping this in advance, so there will be developments for sure in the interlude. But as we speak, I did want to ask you about two things that you've written about, or videotaped, let me say, initially on, namely the war now underway, at least as we speak, between Israel and Iran. The attacks that have been mounted to take down the Iranian nuclear weapons program, which apparently was at the cusp of going very critical, as they say. And another facet of it that I want you to tease out with us as well that I think is of even more importance.
Well, it's Friday the 13th as we're taping this, and it's certainly Friday the 13th for Iran. They have gone way too far. And Trump was very clear. Look, you have 60 days to make a deal. It's the same commerce versus chaos idea he articulated in Riyadh. We can get rich together, or we can get rich without you. And and so here we are. The Israelis on day 61, because they passed their 60-day deadline, wake up Moscow and Brussels and Beijing. On day 61, Israel unleashes hell on the Iranian nuclear sites and leadership. And it's extraordinary. It's ongoing. We'll see where we are by the time this airs. But, I mean, the reality is we have good intel to suggest that the Iranians were at 60% enrichment on enough weapons-grade material to be able to make 15 bombs in a matter of days, weeks at most. You know, to get it from 60 to 90 is just not that big a deal. So you have to eliminate the centrifuges that enrich the uranium. That's the primary target that the Israelis are hitting. They're going to continue hitting it. So far, several hundred Israeli fighter bombers and hundreds of targets hit. And it's a decapitation strike. An awful lot of the Iranian leadership is already dead. And if what we saw in Lebanon is any indication, the rest might as well write their wills.
How important is that to the enterprise, though, Rod? I was among those, as I think were you, who very strongly believed, even if you somehow managed to attack successfully and degrade, shall we say, this nuclear weapons program, if the regime remained in place, you would still have all of the rest of what it has been doing for decades. I mean, it didn't get to be the world's largest state sponsor of terrorism by sitting on its hands. It has actually been working that problem and would have continued to do so, would it not?
Oh, absolutely. You know, this regime has spent 46 years telling the world every single day that Israel is the little Satan, America is the great Satan, and we're going to annihilate both. They declared war on Israel as soon as they overthrew the Shah. So, you know, there's been a state of war, and I understand that a lot of even our conservative friends in the United States ignore this reality, but there's been a state of war now for 46 years between these countries, which Iran has pursued every single day, usually through proxies, Hamas, Hezbollah, the Assad regime, the Houthis. But guess what? Israelis just massively degraded all of those. The United States forced the Houthis to cry uncle, at least in the short term, and the Houthis aren't a long-term threat without Iranian support. Now Israel is raining down destruction on the things that make Iran most dangerous. And we must understand, the Iranians are not a rational actor in the sense that the Soviet Union was during the Cold War. If they get a nuclear weapon, there's a better than even chance that they're going to try to use it on Tel Aviv. And they did a dress rehearsal for that in October when they fired 300 potentially nuclear-capable missiles at Israel. Now, you'll recall that the Israelis with us shot nearly all of those down, but it only takes one. The other side of that, of course, is do you really want to fire off your nuclear arsenal if you only have a few bombs, and we're going to shoot down 300 of 301. So, they do have a calculus they have to consider if it gets to that point, but it would be better if it never got to that point, if we destroy their capacity to build a nuclear weapon at all. Trump already said there's no possible world in which we're allowing Iran to have a nuclear weapon, but we can agree on everything else, and they didn't want to. So they're paying the price.
Rod, you said something that I want to come back on. We have to take a break here in a minute, but just quickly. You said that there's some in the conservative ranks who were ignoring this problem. That's one thing. I just have to say, Tucker Carlson actually said we were lying when we pointed out that the Iranians had a nuclear weapons program and were very close to being able to, bring it to fruition. I must say, I find that appalling. It's not just ignoring a present danger. It is greatly exacerbating it by telling everybody else to ignore it. And that, in fact, if you don't ignore it, then perhaps you are being duped by a bunch of liars. I want to get your thoughts on that if we can on the other side of this very short break. Rod Martin is going to stay with us. We're also going to talk about the trade deal, the breakthrough, we're told, we've now had with the Chinese Communist Party. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and once again, welcome to our friend Rod Martin. Follow him at rodmartin.org, and please be sure, especially, to subscribe to his wonderful Rod Martin report. It's always very engaging and illuminating. And Rod, just on this question about whether we're a bunch of liars for having warned about this threat, and obviously the Israelis are in the wrong for having done anything about it.
Well, I have great respect for Tucker Carlson, but I just don't even know what he's thinking on this. There's no dispute about the Iranian nuclear program. The sites are plain. Their enrichment is plain. They have made plain that they are enriching and that they have a bunch of material that can turn into bombs. And it's all fine and good to say that the Ayatollah has condemned nuclear weapons as haram, but he's also promised the annihilation of Israel and, incidentally, the United States. So why wouldn't he build nuclear weapons? And they'll justify it in the aftermath. So I just think that's crazy. We have good intel that they're on the brink of a nuclear breakthrough. If you were gonna strike them, it had to be now. And moreover, they could have averted it. Trump has been all but begging them to do something that made sense so that they could have commercial nuclear power and we could eliminate the sanctions and they could rejoin the community of nations. And instead, they wanted to pursue the bomb. So,
all I can say is, personally, I think none of that could have been possible with this regime. All of it is possible if the Iranian people are indeed, as Bibi Netanyahu has called upon them to do,
Absolutely.
able to liberate themselves from it.
And
Rod, let me
perhaps we
pivot.
will in all this chaos. If a bunch of the leadership is dead, there's an opening for other people, clearly.
100%. 100%. And the security apparatus, I think this is the key piece. It's not just the leadership. This has got to have degraded dramatically. The security forces of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps and the military, for that matter, to some extent. So hopefully this is very much the beginning of the end of this regime that has been horrific to their own people and threatened the rest of us. So let's pivot to China. President Trump and his administration have not disclosed, at least as of this moment, all of the details of this framework agreement with the Chinese Communist Party. Tell us what we do know about it and what you make of its importance, sir.
It's incredibly important. The Chinese basically surrendered, and I'll get to what I mean by that. I don't want people to think that this is the end, full and final, complete everything. No, Americans love the happy ending at the end of the movie, and in the real world, life goes on and there's always a tomorrow. So there are other aspects to this, but in the short term, the Chinese have basically surrendered, and I can illustrate it in one very simple point. We are going to charge them 55% tariffs. They are going to charge us 10%. 55 to 10. This is extraordinary. They agreed to it. And I almost didn't believe it at first. I tweeted about it. But, I wanted to wait before I talked about it too much to see if Beijing would confirm that what Trump said was really something they'd agreed to. And they have. They confirmed it. Okay, so what does it mean? I mean, first of all, you've got the tariff regime. Those big tariffs go away if the Chinese will get right on intellectual property and fentanyl. And they probably won't. But nevertheless, that's the deal. If they get right on those two things, we're going to cut our tariffs. But in the meantime, 55 to 10. Second, they're already starting to ship rare earths again, guaranteeing the magnet supply. Those things are mission critical for us until Trump manages to get our supply chain diversified. That's part of what Ukraine's about. That's part of what Greenland is about. But the truth is, we have enough rare earths here to supply 85% of the world if we had refineries that could actually process the raw material. So that's something Jimmy Carter.
So, and you understand this stuff, Rod. How hard is that as a practical matter? Is this a function of just overarching and overweening environmental regulatory problems, or is this lack of investment, or what?
Pretty much. And a government that is just dead set against it, so who wants to invest in it? It's very much like nuclear fuel reprocessing. Carter killed that, just like he killed the molten salt reactor program that would have created thorium reactors that produce material that can't even be turned into a bomb, and tons of power. But of course Jimmy Carter kills that. And same thing here. We need refining capacity with modern technology that is cleaner than what we had in the 70s. But the truth is, this is mission critical. We have to have the stuff, and we can produce it here at home, or in the alternative in Ukraine, or in Greenland, wherever. But we've got to diversify out of China. In the meantime, we've got to have China. This deal gets us that. And you will quickly point out, I'm sure, and you're right to do so, the main concession we gave them was to allow their students to continue to come to U.S. universities. Well, okay, lots of those are spies, no question. We just had this bioterror set of arrests, with Chinese students. So, that's not exactly everything we'd want, but the truth is they're going to spy anyway. They're going to have their people here anyway. And this way we make a lot of money off of them, and we poach some of their best talent in the process. So it's not a bad thing. We weren't really going to shut the doors on that anyway. We won, they lost. That's it.
Well, let me just say, as we speak, shortly, our Committee on the Present Danger of China, of which you are an important member, Rod Martin, is hosting its weekly webinar on this issue of terrorism, as it's being called, another aspect of Xi Jinping's biological warfare component of the unrestricted warfare the Chinese Communist Party has waged against this country for decades. We will be talking, among other things, about the fact that 3 of these individuals were students, and it wasn't about spying. It was about doing what they are obliged to do under Chinese law.
Yes.
Which is whatever the Chinese Communist Party tells them to do.
Yes.
Sabotage, perhaps. Mass murder, perhaps. Taking down the grid, perhaps. Anything. And 300,000 of those students, I think, is way more than the traffic can bear. We'll be on that shortly with all of you, and we look forward to talking with you, Rod, next week. God bless you, my friend.
And
Come back for more next time, folks. Until then, go forth and multiply.